Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Moon Colony live stream. It's nice to see you. I hope you're all having a wonderful Thursday. We've got Arthur with us here again today. Hello, Arthur.
Hey guys, everybody, how's it going?
Good. So yeah, we're having you do something a little bit different. I feel like normally when we get you on, it's like portfolio reviews or like art critiques or something.
Right.
So it's a bit of a festive treat. I thought we'd unlock the cage and let you come out.
I appreciate it.
So
Very well worded.
yeah, so yeah, I don't know if you want to sort of take people through what it is that you're
Sure.
planning on doing today. If anyone has
Okay.
any issues with any of like the audio and stuff, then just drop it in the chat and I'll mess around with it. I know we had some problems yesterday, but we'll see how it goes.
Already. Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it from there. Yeah, everybody, I hope you're doing all right. Yeah, as a festive treat, I've been let out of my cage. That's pretty cool. I kind of sort of stretch my limbs and sort of be blinded by that sort of winter light, see what I can do with it. But yeah, it's basically what I'm thinking is like sort of walking through my process of like using gradient maps to set up some quick mood and like play with it as long as possible, like with the bare minimum of like layers and the bare minimum of effects, and trying to produce the maximum impact and maximum like variety and richness within a picture. So hopefully it's something you can take home and like experiment with. I'll be describing my steps. They're pretty simple. It's just a little weird, but it's kind of fun once you know the setup to sort of play with it. So let me explain quickly. Like I've got a few references. So like the top three here are like sort of artistic references, things that are striking, interesting. Compositions is cool. Colors are like interesting. And the 2, 3 at the bottom is more like material reference, I guess. I wanted to like paint a tree somewhere, like or maybe two. And so I was just trying to look at like pictures that can sort of like explain or like describe. They're more descriptive. It's like what a tree looks like when it's covered with snow. Yeah, so that would be it. Like just a few references here. I'll put them here on the side, and we'll get started. So first things first, I would set up a perspective grid. That's like my sort of go-to thing. Like when I have like a blank canvas with, especially when I want to do an environment, I'll just set up a grid. So I have my horizon, and I see how space just sort of progress in depth. Without it, it's just like a big flat surface, and I have a hard time sort of, imagining things in it. You can I can imagine things maybe, but like it's kind of hard to keep track of everything and to have like some sort of cohesion within the picture without a perspective grid. Anyway, enough words. Let me out of my cage already.
Yeah.
Just funny thing, like a sort of like artistic gimp, like set me loose and like once in a blue moon. Okay.
That's what happens. That's what happens when I don't plan what I'm gonna say.
Well, it's hilarious. Anyway, all right. So I'll start with this first vanishing point. I'll stretch it to sort of already have a sense of like depth in space. I'll put it off center, like I want to avoid like my horizon being like smack in the middle. I'll just pick a nice sort of spot here. And so of course, like this line here, this horizontal line is literally my horizon, and the rest is like my sort of depth axis, like the z axis. Yeah, the z axis is zoom, so it's like the depth thing.
Yeah.
I like stretching it like this because it already gives a sense of like things being bigger as they're closer to you, like, and like things squishing away like on the sides. Without it, it sort of looks more neutral. I don't know. I just kind of like that. I'll put it over here. Then I'll duplicate this layer with Control J, and I'll just like move it to the side. If you press Shift, it's sort of like it's got a sort of magnet effect, so
Yeah.
you really don't lose the horizon, because that's one thing you don't want to do is like this, essentially like the horizon changing from one vanishing point to the other. So I'll just go back to what I had before. Yeah, here it to the side, stretch it some more. The trick is like if your first vanishing point is like somewhere on the left, your other one should be like way off to the right, like to get a sense of like realistic perspective. It would be very strange if your second vanishing point was here. It would mean you have a camera or an angle of view that's a field of view that's so large that you can sort of encompass, kind of like a fish eye or like a bug's eye, I guess. Like your eye could see just everything, like, which is unrealistic. So yeah, stretch those all the way there. Now the ideal like function of a perspective grid is to indicate how lines cross at 90 degrees, like on the ground or in the sky or something, just give you a sort of like, just using squares to help you visualize space. So here the thing is like, my squares look a little bit like elongated, they look more like rectangles. So it tends to like diminish the amount of space I have in depth. Like it feels like I have only a few squares, like to play with depth-wise, which is not a good indication. So once again, I would like take this new vanishing point, duplicate it, so Ctrl plus J, and I'll transform it. Press Alt, and you'll always like Alt and Shift. I think, yeah, I'm doing Alt and Shift, and so you can sort of like transform it, but without losing the horizon. If I don't like, it does this, or if I only do like Alt, it does this. If I only do Shift, it does this. So let me just go back here, Alt and Shift, and I'll just sort of squeeze these like this, so that's good for one. And I'll do it again like this. So it's not like perfect, not every square is like super, I don't know, like, but at least I feel like I have more space to play with, like a deeper, like compressed sense of space. So that will be my horizontals here, and then finally I'll add a third vanishing, verticals, yep, here. Copy this layer here, do there. So since our horizon is like in sight, it's unlikely that we see like a third vanishing point like this or like that. I'll just keep them like vertical. So it might not be like super necessary. Maybe I can even like not do that, but in general, I like having like all three axes like indicated. It's just sort of it feels more complete to me. Like the perspective grid has three axes, like X, Y, Z. The Y is the verticals, Z is the zooming, like the sort of depth thing, and X is like the cross lines. Yeah, so that's my perspective grid. I'll crop this, merge all that stuff, call it perspective. Always like naming my layers because otherwise it's instant mess. And now let's move on to save before catastrophe happens. And now let's move on to creating a gradient map, something we'll play with. So first, I'll take this from a completely white canvas to a like a 50% down, so like pure gray, just smack between black and white, like pure gray. Then I'll go here, this little thing here, this like half black, half white circle. I'll go to gradient map, and now I have this thing. So make sure like properties are like a tab that's like activated in your however your layout is. And I'll just you click in the gradient itself, and it opens this nice little window. Now what we're gonna do is just sort of like pick colors from the reference, especially the one with the church, which just before the call, like Jaden was saying how that's his favorite like image of this reference, and it's mine as well. It's really cool. Like the warmth is really awesome. So that's what we're gonna start with. You click anywhere like underneath the like the gradient here. It'll just add a little tab here. So of course, like, because I think, well, I don't know why, but for some reason it just chooses black as a default color, but it's okay. Just double click in it in this tab, and now we have the color picker. So we'll just go straight to the reference and go for like that red here. Now let's take a look. The luminosity of that red is 66, right? That's the L thing. So to make sure it matches the distance, like the same luminosity on our gradient, we'll just put it at 66%. the location should also be 66. So it's like 66 like between black and white. So it's
Okay.
like the color we picked matches the location of the tab. So we have like a nice, the same ratio. Like it's not like a crazy bleached or, it's not like washed into white or too dark overall or something. It still stays within the same values as just a normal gradient between black and white. So it'll be a first color. Let's bring a new tab here, somewhere random here. Double click, and then we'll choose like maybe that nice blue here. That's at 44 luminosity. So let's bring it to 44 right there. And yeah, gradient maps are it.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah. I
Let's
saw
make
earlier Anne Seberg said hi. I'm assuming they know you,
oh,
but
and yes, my student, my former now
ah,
mentee. Wow, that's really cool.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool to have you on board. That's awesome. Nice to have you again. That's great. Wow. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah, let's keep going. Another tab here. I'll try to pick up something like a lighter orange, right? So that's 79 right here, 79. And now, like, I don't like those colors aren't really appearing here, but I'd like to have like something a bit more golden towards the white, so it doesn't transition from like this pinkish red to white. I'd like to have some more orange in there. So I'll just pick like that 90 location, just add a tab here, double click. This one I'll just select manually. Right, we'll put something here, maybe a little more orange. Yeah, that'll be cool.
We actually have a question from Jane Luna Art that says, setting the layer in color mode, does that help to match better the values for the study? I don't.
Setting setting the layers in color mode. You mean like the gradient map? In color mode?
Luna, if you can kind of give us a bit more info on what you mean there, that would be great.
Yeah. Match better the values for the study. I'm not too sure. Yeah, not too sure, but let us know. Let shed a bit of light on that.
Yeah.
Cryptic command. Oh, the
yeah,
gradient
they
map.
meant the gradient map. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Sure. No, let's leave it in normal. It's very important. Like leave it normal like this.
Mm-hmm.
And now underneath, I just made a new layer, also in normal. So just keep in mind, like if I turn this off, like it's all gray, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the gradient map now is turning my gray into whatever is in the middle. Oops, in the middle here. It's it's turning into this. So it's like a transformation. But of course, if I now I'm only gonna paint in like black or white. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll choose a brush that's pretty forgiving, something blurry like this. And if I like, darker spots, they're gonna behave with all that gradient that we have here.
Wow.
They're gonna explore like this thing essentially. If I paint with white, we're gonna have like all these crazy cool color variations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's really, that's like gradient maps are really magical like that. And so of course, if I remove the gradient map, you'll see all the ugliness. You'll see how the sausage is made. It's just black and white. It's ugly. Let's quickly, yeah. Anyway, so that's it essentially. So I'll make your first layer like this. I'll have my layers, my references here on the side, and I'll start with, I think, I like that sort of splashy like light impact. Like that, for example, on the steeple of the church, or like on the trees and stuff. So I'll just start with that. I think I'll grab like just a soft brush, pure white, and we'll start with just the accent, like that sort of focal point.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just add it somewhere, and it can be like just a tree, maybe the top part of a tree. That's all.
Man, it's such a different way to go about doing it. Like, it almost feels like you're painting with light. Like instead.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and it's the laziest way to paint. Like you're only using white, and the color, the gradient map is taking care of the rest, and you're just
Yeah.
like, yeah. But I'm sort of using the perspective grid here as a way to sort of understand how like how the point of view changes
Hmm.
as you're painting things up. So like if I were to uh, like if I'm painting like rings, like how to say layers of branches on a pine tree, I know that if I'm painting them like close to the ground here, they're gonna be like sort of organized like this, and if I paint them up there, they're gonna be more organized like like this. So it's it sort of helps you understand like if you have a constant, at least what you need truly is a horizon. If
Yeah.
you can sort of just wing it, then it's okay, but at least have a clear indication of your horizon so you know like how far you're getting from it.
Hmm.
uh, Instead of like just everything being floating in the air and things being sort of like disconnected and disjointed.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's just paint some happy trees.
Yeah. Some happy little trees, in the words of
Yeah,
Bob Ross.
yeah. Um, and it's very therapeutic. Like I like it. It's I like to do this or like clouds as well because they're very like just random shapes, like natural
Yeah.
organic shapes. And using gradient maps is a great way to just see things happen. Anyway, enough words, enough gesturing. Let me just uh, show you guys. Yeah.
Have you had much snow where you are, Arthur?
No, not yet. Not a
No.
single flake. Uh, but I mean, I live in a big city. There's if there's snow, it's gonna come late. I think
Yeah.
for like I think next year, like some January, maybe February, we're gonna have snow.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's gonna be like quick and gone, and
it,
it's gonna be slush before you know it.
yeah, that's exactly the same where I live. We tend to get it like January, February time, and if you live anywhere that isn't in the middle of nowhere, it's just instantly
Yeah,
slush, and you're like, great,
yeah,
that was a
great.
nice 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna sad when like 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 a morning, it's like bright and beautiful and fluffy, and then the next day it's like you have like like black pebbles of tar just encrusted in it from all the
Yeah,
buses that just
yeah,
sprayed it with muck.
hmm, yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, we have a first shape here. It's like, okay, like composition wise, like what I like to do also is like, of course, putting my, oops, my like interesting thing like off center, off, somewhere not quite smack in the middle. And also like within it, I like to distribute detail like a bit purposefully. Like there's randomness to it, but a bit purposefully, like creating like busier shapes
hmm,
somewhere here. Uh, Alternating between like what's a cast shadow. So like for example here, this branch right here, it's casting a shadow underneath onto like other branches, right? It doesn't matter what it is, where it is. It's what matters is that you have like somewhere some neat cast shadows that are happening. That creates a sense of like tangible, like it's sort of like it gives light a physical appearance, and it strengthens the visual impact of your object, whatever you're painting. And I like to combine that with occlusion, shadow, or ambient occlusion,
oh, oh no,
rolling out of being unable to really penetrate, in those recesses. So it's there are two kinds of shadows that are very that complement themselves very well, and that can help describe a shape with
hmm,
minimal effort. Uh, it's like fundamental stuff that if you don't know it, you might be able to naturally just gravitate towards that. But once you know it, it's like, oh yeah, like you can be more purposeful about it, more
yeah,
like you can direct your efforts more efficiently, I guess. And what you want to do also is like have big areas of rest, smaller areas where things are more concentrated, and sort of like compare. Like I got one here, one here. Sorry, it's more here actually. And I'm trying to balance them out,
hmm,
taking a while to just like concoct this sort of balance between them without thinking of whatever the rest is going to be. Like so far, I know that I got a pine tree, it's somewhere there. I know my horizon. I know my like sort of sense of progressive elevation in the sky, and I'm just sort of like hanging things into this grid pretty much without trying to think too much about it. So like that's why I keep like perspective grid like barely visible. You get used to it. Like if I use it every time, so I don't really pay attention too much. At the beginning, it might be a bit distractive. It's like all these things everywhere, but you do get like yeah, used to it. Oh, thanks, Anne. I was just taking a second to read awesome compliments.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Thank you so much.
gonna pass some of those on. But yeah, and Elvira says every time Arthur brings in some super neat tricks as well.
I appreciate it. Glad it helps. Anyway, so I'm sort of like spending maybe a little too much on this little detail here. It's at least for now, it's good as like a base. We'll see what we do with it later. So like, okay, we have a shape that's pretty much like our steeple here. It's serving the same purpose. But I'd like to have a bit more, I don't know, something else. It's hard to think of something else when a picture, like a reference picture, already works so well.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not, yeah. But let's see anyway. At least from a like my usual process, I like to have at least something that echoes that feeling on the other side of the composition, not at the same level of depth. So what we're definitely not going to do is like another pine tree right here with the same shape, the same busyness, and all that stuff. Not the same object, not at the same depth, not with the same neatness as well. So what I'm thinking just like randomly right now is just like a bit of somehow like like the whatever is casting the shadow is probably a mountain or way in our back casting shadows, or maybe a building, maybe it could be like a barn or something casting a shadow across that tree, the base of the tree. Somehow it's like oops, it's like not happening on that side, maybe like the shadow ends here, or there's a million ways to justify why something happened.
So yeah, the screen share just dropped out, but you're back now.
Oh, great, okay.
Yeah, that's right. It happens sometimes.
There we go.
Okay.
No worries. Okay, great to be back. Yeah, so I'll definitely be less I don't know, less striking, less impactful, less bright, less detailed. It's just, so for now it's just a gradient, like it's just sort of placeholder gradient. So that's all I'll keep it on one layer. So that's we can color code it like maybe orange. So it's like pretty clear. Now I'll do the same, but with shadows. I'll just like pick black and I'll start messing around with maybe a different brush. This could be fun. And I like to imagine maybe it's like a dark body of water, like what we have here. I think it's pretty cool. It could help like zigzag in a sort of sharp way across the landscape, suggest pretty much effortlessly like just something happening on the ground. It could help sort of divide the composition like this. So we'll just get started. So of course I'm using only black now, so quickly if I keep doing passes like this, it's gonna be like pitch black immediately. So yeah, so what I'll do is like I set my color picker to current and below. What it does now is like if you keep an eye on like this little thing here, this square, you'll see as like I'm dragging around, like it'll just lighten because
okay,
you see like it's just picking anything between like the pitch black I just painted and like the gray that's like the neutral color underneath. So anyway, I'll just turn the magic back on and right, but keep in mind like keep it to current and below. Don't do it to current layer, otherwise you'll just only pick the black of your black layer, and don't pick all layers because then you'll have like like the blues and oranges of your overall picture, so you're gonna mess it up. I'll just pick whatever that indigo is. It's pretty cool. Erase my mess. I'll just start over. Maybe this brush is cool. It's kind of neater. Usually I'll alternate between like a soft brush like this, like that's what I painted the tree with, a blurry marker, so it's kind of like this, what I was just doing before, or this wet brush here. I don't know what it's called, wet brush. It's like my boss back in Thailand, like my first job, had that brush, gave it to us, and I kept it. That's a 15-year-old brush, pretty much, from Photoshop CS3 or whatever
Yeah,
the thing was back then. But I like it, so sometimes I'll just use it. Anyway, get going. Our horizon is pretty flat, like it's really not tilted at all. There's no Dutch tilt or whatever, so I still want to have a bit of drama or sort of some sort of dynamism to it. So my body of water, like that river, is definitely going to be like diagonal like this. Let's try to maybe have it go across fully. Can be kind of cool. And yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
yeah.
Good, good.
And,
I'm glad it
it's
helped.
like, yeah, I love that brush. I use it all the time.
Yeah, it's yeah, few brushes are versatile and have this weird magic. It's you keep them forever for sure.
Yeah.
I think my boss is probably we say in French like your ears are ringing when someone is talking
Oh,
about you.
yeah, it's
I don't
similar in
know.
the UK. In the UK, it's like your ears are burning.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, much more gruesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nice warm ring. Let's put it in
Yeah,
the middle
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
Okay. Um, ears are burning, dude. Someone talking about you. Your ears on fire. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
people, for the love of God, stop talking about this guy.
He's just screaming in
He's
the
murdered.
corner.
Uh, uh, anyway, right. So what I'm doing right now is like imagining that's why it's important to have like a perspective grid that compresses depth nicely, like with a bunch of horizontal lines that really lets you sense like a bunch of distance from one square to the next, so you can really like understand how space functions, and so you can really visualize. Oops, that space I was painting on. Okay, good. On this layer, and so you can really compress things vertically, which is important because you want to you don't want your river like or whatever you're painting to be like looking like this, you know. It's that would be way too I don't know. It would not be realistic at all. I think it's
Yeah.
cooler, more realistic if you have something more compressed. And so the banks are full of snow, like so by in some spots you don't see the river anymore. We're gonna have our tree, I guess, like extend to the bottom here, so it's gonna disappear here as well. Reappear elsewhere. Maybe here. And I was wondering if I could maybe, if I would do like a lake all the way in the back. So our horizon, let me zoom in a little bit. Our horizon is like here. So maybe I'll just do like just below the horizon. And all this stuff will be like the lake itself. I'm just making it up as I go along. Let's see. It's very yeah, Bob Ross, like a nice little lake,
Yeah.
little tree. It's going to the friend very soon, you know, bye.
I like that about like I love watching people do landscapes, like you know, like Bob Ross, for example, where you can just kind of tell that they're just letting their imagination just take it. They're like, oh yeah, why not? Let's just have a lake or something. It's really cool to see these places develop.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really relaxing when you have like when you're dealing only with organic or sort of natural elements. There's not like this rigidity of everything having to be super tight and neat and everything well aligned or whatever. There's the really all you need really is a good sense of perspective. So it can be just a horizon, it can be a full-fledged like perspective grid, but you need something to really help you sense space as you paint. And it's really like hanging things on a grid. Really, I mean, at first it's a bit laborious, but it gets easier for sure. Like that's my technique, and I recommend it. Like it's all right.
That's the thing. I think once.
Yeah, I like to. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, like, I like to at that stage already see what I can contrast. You know, so there's like color contrast, value contrast, and also shape contrast. So we have these fluffy things on the tree. So now I'm like using the snow and the river to be like more jagged and zigzaggy and hopefully not too aggressive. I'll try to soften it a little bit. I don't want it to look like shards, too much.
Yeah.
But for now, I've been like sort of using, the shift button, like the shift command to sort of like draw lines like this. So it's a bit too sharp, but hopefully we'll soften things around. Maybe I can use this blurry marker now and sculpt things more softly. Save before the apocalypse also.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
Yeah, that's something that we don't see a lot on the stream, and it sometimes stresses me out a little bit. A lot of the artists that we have on the stream, I never notice them saving. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure, but I never notice it. And I'm just like waiting for the day and we get to like the last 15 minutes and their computer crashes or something.
Yeah. Talking about crashing, Alex Alexandrov, one of our most precious artists, he's been having like the worst troubles with his computer lately, like rebooting all the time, like mid-work, like losing like tons of work. It's all fixed now. It was like due to some like faulty like Windows version. Like he was using I don't use Windows, so like currently like there's a new Windows and they've stopped support, or at least it sort of compromises support for the previous version he's using, and his computer started like rebooting out of the blue, like non-stop.
Wow.
And the computer guy that he brought it to was like, there's nothing wrong with the computer, it works on my computer. Like his hard drive was working on his stuff, so he just figured, oh, all right, maybe it's my Windows because you're using a different one, and it was that indeed. So
wow. That's the worst. That's the thing with like updating your Windows. Like on my personal computer, I'm still on Windows 10, which is like a whole like generation behind what we're on now. But for the longest time, I was just like, I'm not updating until it's somewhat stable, and it just never is.
I've been a Mac user for a long time. I don't necessarily advocate for Mac, but I just like, I'm happy with it. It's okay. I don't have like Mac everything. It's just I happen to have a Mac, and it's really stable, and at least that there's that. It's expensive, it's pricey. You can't play games with it, but for work, it's definitely I'm happy to recommend it.
This is the thing, I think, with Mac OS, like the operating system that they use, like it's been the same for so long. Like the fact, and I think that's a good thing. It's not with Windows. It seems that they just add features just because they can, and it's like that's not really. It's not really what people want. Like people don't care. They just want a PC that works.
Exactly. Anyway, what I was just doing before is like I made a layer mask right here, like using this, and I sort of like using a big soft brush. I kind of erased a bit the like the back, of the lake here, and so that it sort of lightens it a little bit. Because if you erase something, whether it's on a layer mask or directly on the layer, it will sort of walk back like all these color progressions that you have in your in your gradient map. So you'd never just fully erase, you also reveal different colors. So we're sort of progressing more towards like this sort of weird desaturated purple if I erase this, even to the blues and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. Like even by erasing, you can reveal a lot of like color variety. And now I'm still using black, or at least the same colors before, but I'm adding, I'd say, more details like shadows to the tree here. So go here, see what it looks like. Pretty bad, like it's pretty pixelated, but it does the job from from the distance. So see, the base is pretty dark. I'll see if I can. What it looks like here. I could go on like this layer here, but I don't want to by mistake like paint over the river or something. So I'll just same color, same everything, but just on a different layer. if I'm happy with it, I'll merge the two because I like to combine things into just one layer per one color per one effect or something. So
Yeah.
I don't like a million things floating around. It's a bit tricky at the beginning. You feel like you're committing too early or too much, like unnecessary. But it does clarify a bunch of stuff, uh, and it lets you understand also you're not like constantly messing up. Like you're actually pretty, like and it sort of speeds up your progress. Like when I
Yeah.
started doing that, I noticed that I progressed more quickly because I was just sort of, yeah, commitment, like just sort of decision, committing to decision, letting them fail, and
Mhm.
learning from them. It sort of helps your brain just unconsciously just process a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
uh, and like course correct, like intuitively or instinctively, you just won't do this exactly the same mistakes as you did the time before. If it's all floating all the time, it's hard for your brain to sort of figure it out, like
Yeah.
figure out exactly what doesn't work.
That's the thing. You have to let yourself make mistakes sometimes.
For sure, yeah. It's an investment, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Lisa says sketching with the gradient map on is such a big brain idea. I'm testing that right now and it's crazy satisfying.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love like painting clouds like that.
Yeah.
I'll just show for a second. Like I have to find it. It's in my um. Let's see.
They also didn't know about the color picker in Active and Below or Current and Below, whatever it was called. That
Mm.
it's amazing. Thanks for the tip. I was just sketching clouds. That's
Oh
when I
yeah,
felt I needed to say it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like these, I really like this stuff. Painting
Wow.
sky a million years ago. I wanted to show. Oh yeah, this one. I liked it. It was fun. Uh, I did a bunch. Like it's just fun to do. It just
Yeah.
yields really interesting results. And there's this sort of almost therapeutic or very relaxing at least thing
Yeah.
to it. Like there's no pressure. You're not like you can have like for trees it's a little different. You have to like kind of know like what a tree exactly like look likes.
Hmm.
But for clouds it's like it's you actually make up shapes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching a YouTube video the other day. I can't even remember what the overall topic was, but there was a part of it where they were looking at that like really famous photo of the Earth. I think it's just called like
Mhm.
the blue marble or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, "Oh yeah, you can tell that this has like been like the photo has been edited, like photoshopped, because like
Oh yeah.
because these clouds don't exist. Like you don't get clouds like that in real life."
Oh.
And I
Mm.
was like, "That's interesting." And they were like, "Yeah, it is photoshopped, but like it still is like a photo of the Earth. It's because when they took the photos, the satellites can't get far enough out to get one whole picture of the entire Earth, so it's like stitching together multiple
Ah.
images.
Okay.
So they have to like fill in the gaps. And yeah, where they filled in the gaps of where these clouds are on one specific portion of the picture,
Oh
the
wow.
clouds weren't real. Which is for like a everyday person, there's no way that you would ever notice
Of
that.
course.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Interesting.
yeah, I thought that was really cool. But yeah, um,
Yeah. Definitely.
what's this? Lemon Eminence says saw some advice on saw let me start that again. I can't read. Um, saw some advice to draw on one layer from time to time to get rid of the fear of merging layers. That even if you can make a
Mhm.
mistake, you can still draw over it. Well, yeah, exactly.
True. Yeah. Yeah. A good way also to dispel that fear of messing up is to try every once in a while, like for an afternoon, like um, traditional painting, like with oils, with
Mm,
gouache or whatever, acrylics, and maybe do a study, like just something that you have in front of you that you can do, and you'll be amazed how like when you know that you really can't control Z
yeah,
at all, you pay attention to things and you're not like that you're not that unable to do it as you thought you would be, like there's actually sort of conditioning that you go through where like, oh, all right, I'll just pay more attention and pay,
Mm.
your strokes are more deliberate, they're more patient.
Mm.
And going back to Photoshop, you feel much more free. It's like, oh wow, I could totally paint on one layer for now, or I don't need all these layers. It's you sort of prove to yourself when you paint traditionally for even just an afternoon that you're totally capable of like this, committing and analyzing and deciphering things properly,
Yeah.
without a million things like like 3 safety nets or 37 safety nets per, like one per layer essentially. Um, or well, the guy who my previous boss, the guy who gave me the wet brush here,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, he organized those like little things. Like every once in a while, we just paint traditionally. He had like a bunch of oil paint, so we just needed like we just uh first you prepare like a cardboard or like some sort of like wood board or canvas or whatever, with like you treat it white. I forgot what the name of the thing was. It
Oh,
has a name,
yeah.
gesso or gesso or
Yeah,
maybe or something
gesso.
like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Then once it's dry, you can just like paint like oil paint on it, and we would do it with like one or two colors. It was again like super relaxing, super therapeutic, and also like yeah, very eye opening as to the skills you didn't know you had, the patience you didn't know you had. It's really cool.
Mhm.
I recommend it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I'm okay with what I did here for now. I'll just merge it to this layer here. We'll code it in indigo. And now what I would like to introduce is a bit of like those nice teal colors that we see in this reference and above here as well. Because now it's like very, I don't know, it's a bit too simple. So
Yeah.
I think I'll try here, but I think if I just, oops, I just use white. Yeah, right away we go into like orange. So I think I'll go above my gradient map. So outside of those gradient map affected colors, like everything that's under your gradient map is like affected by it. Everything that's above it is like free from it. I'll just go above it. I'll color code it like blue like this. I'll pick a nice teal color to make this. Right, and we'll start messing around with it. So I like, so basically like that blue, you have to sort of understand where it's coming from, right? Like that blue is like basically the ground, the snowy ground reflecting the color of the sky. It's like mirroring the sky. So you have to sort of picture that. And this way, what you can do is like see what things are facing up the most, especially like on the tree, like the top of the branches, they would receive some of that blue. So like the bottom wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
It's like sort of facing forward or down or something. But and again with perspective grid, you sort of see, especially if you have the verticals that are not super necessary, there's no building or anything, but the verticals sort of lets you understand like, all right, that skylight is falling vertically, and so if here is like our branch, then maybe just the top of the branch is like receiving it. Here that would be right there. It sort of helps you really understand, even if you don't really need it, but at least that's a sort of nice residual sort of use I find for like those vertical lines. They sort of help me understand like ambient light falling vertically onto my objects.
Yeah.
Um, I'll, well, that was just a quick example here, but actually I'll start with the sky. I think it'll be more impactful.
Mhm.
Just sort of use that teal to create a sort of atmospheric perspective. So like, just air, moist air
Mhm.
glowing with different light.
I was gonna say that I really wish that I lived somewhere that got really nice snow, but then I realized that I would probably get really annoyed about it anytime I wanted to go anywhere.
Mm,
It's probably one of those things that's nice in concept.
yeah, it's nice from the inside with
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like with nice hot chocolate.
yeah,
Uh, Anything you have to do outside is yeah.
yeah. I was I was speaking to a friend of mine who lives in Canada, and I remember them saying at the start of this year that they were like, "Ah, yeah, we've been like snowed in and like without power for like days now." It's like, are you worried about it?
Oh,
No, not really. Oh, okay, cool.
oh my God.
Yeah, you kind of want that middle ground of a nice bit of snow. I want to be able to build a snowman, uh,
Yeah.
and that'll do.
Mm. You want to have like access. You want to be maybe in a country that has
Yeah,
access to like a countryside part, like you're a few
yeah,
hours away from a place that gets a lot of snow and it's great.
yeah,
Then you can go back to, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Um, uh, Dowd says, how do you decide on your background, foreground, and midground when starting with an empty canvas?
Hmm.
I really seem to struggle
Interesting.
with this. Hmm.
Okay. Very important. Yeah. Well, let's address this. Uh,
Mhm.
so you want to put your most important stuff in the middle ground usually. That's where this way you can sort of sandwich it between a bit of background, a bit of foreground. It creates a sort of setting for it. It's not always 100% true or necessary. Sometimes, like if it's an illustration that sort of focuses on a bug, for example, you might have like a bunch of background behind, just like a blade of grass with the bug on it. So there's literally no foreground
Yeah.
in front of it. Or maybe you can cheat with a bit of like a blurry extra blade of grass that's like barely visible. I would do that. At least I would try to like inject a little bit of extra foreground
Mhm.
just to at least get some that trinity, I guess. That's sort of like having three things, uh, and not just like your object and then something in the back, because it creates a sort of like binary contrast. Like you have the thing and then the background. It can easily be separated. Sandwiching is always better.
Yeah.
So I would say like think of your middle ground first, like my tree, and then organize things uh, um, like before and like in front of it and behind it. But like having your middle ground as a priority sort of frees your mind. Like, okay, just think of your middle ground, think of what object you want to draw, like make it beautiful, like set it up nicely like you want,
Mhm.
and then let the rest sort of organize itself around it, in front of it and behind it.
Mhm.
At least that's my sort of um, method to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, and what you want to do also is like uh, echo things like from one side to the other. So for example, I was doing this before. Uh, Again, maybe what I would do is maybe having a bit more like maybe a tree or a sort of understanding that maybe there's another tree here. You see what I mean? This way, like
Mhm.
what I have going on this side, it's also happening on the other side, but just at a different scale, at a different depth. Uh, so you see, like it's all trickling down from that middle ground. First is my middle ground, then I do sandwich it between like two bodies of water here, like a little bit of river and like a lake behind. And then like I'm like, okay, let's add more like an echo of that middle ground here, that object here. Uh, I would at least that's something I would like consider. And if it works, if you see that it works, then you keep it. If not, like you forget it. But
Yeah.
it's a there's a it's a big topic, maybe a little too
Yeah.
big for this, but hopefully these two tips can help you get the ball rolling, or at least help you consider like a little checkpoint. Like when you're halfway through a composition, like just check, okay, do I have these steps covered? Do I have a nice like something in the background, something in the foreground? Do I prioritize my middle ground? Can I echo like shapes to each side? Uh, does it make it work? All right, so I'll this here. I'll keep it really simple. All right, I get my teal layer here, and now going.
I've also just dropped a link in the chat as well for you, Dowd, if you're interested. A few weeks ago, we did a stream with Alex Heath, and he was doing some community paintovers, and he did a short, it was like 5-10 minutes on back, middle, and foreground.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
talking about almost thinking of it like a stage, like at a
Yeah,
play or something. Um, and
very
yeah,
nice.
it's quite interesting. I remember thinking that it broke it down really nicely. So if you're interested, take a look. I think it's like 5-10 minute section. I've time stamped that link in the
Mm,
chat. So um, yeah,
sweet,
it's great.
awesome. All right, so now I'm adding like a new layer, and I'm gonna try to add more stuff behind this tree because now it's like almost like it's pretty bare. So I'll get us into third gear at least.
I really love these I really love the winter like illustrations where they have like a river. There's something that I love a lot about having a snowy winter scene with a nice river going through it. Um,
Yeah,
that's why I like
yeah,
that third reference that you've got. It's currently behind my head. There you go.
mm,
Like it's got such epic scale, especially with that massive uh,
yeah.
like rock in the background and just the small boat.
Mm,
It's really relaxing, kind of uh, awe-inspiring at the same time. I love it.
yeah, yeah, sure. All right, so what I'm doing here is like I'm adding, I'm basically painting in one color. It's like this sort of grayish, like this color here. Again, if I remove the magic, this is what it looks like. Uh, and I'll just erase and paint and erase and paint. So like sort of suggesting where snow is and where it's not, like so basically on this roof here, this could be a sort of roof. I'll just add a bit of snow here, remove it like right under like the edge of the roof. Maybe add more snow. Oops. Oh no, that's because there's a river right there. I'll just pick what's here. Anyway, I'll just like still with the color picker, like with current and below. I'm above everything. Like I'm still under my gradient map, but I'm above like my light layer and my dark layer. So now I'm just sort of like picking what's underneath and like refining basically.
Yeah.
I'll probably just stay on that layer and keep detailing and adding stuff. Basically, like the two main steps are done for now. At least it's a good enough base to sort of like play around with on the new layer that's above everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So always try to like organize, like try to use diagonals as much as you can. Try to avoid verticals and horizontals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of principle I try to use all the time. And try to have your details like sort of guide the eye of the viewer towards something. So for example, I'm using like that snow on the roof, sort of like subtly guide us towards this, or at least sort of pull the eye towards that direction. I'm trying to avoid having too many details on the edges of the canvas. You see like all that sort of the rounder shapes, the busier shapes are kind of going to be sort of here, and on the edge it's going to be more simple. And the more you can accentuate that contrast between the busy and the smaller areas
Mm-hmm.
and the bigger, more restful areas, there's a sense of elegance to it. There's a sort of a sense of taste to it. And what I mean by that, like to be like really concrete with you, not just say some mystical stuff. Like if you consider like I don't know, like a child's dress versus like a ball gown, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a child's dress could be like like the top, a ribbon, you know.
Oh no, he's frozen again. Oh no. We'll give him a second and see if he comes back. If not, I'll just drop us into a be right back. All right, I'll put us into a be right back. I feel like we've got some internet issues, but I will pull us back as soon as it's sorted. I'll move us back in 3. Oh, you go ahead. There we go. We're good.
All right. Okay. Hey,
Hello.
are we back?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry, everybody. My internet just like went out on me. Like it does that like once in a blue moon. It will just stop for like a minute and then start
yeah.
again. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
it's really bad luck. It rarely happens.
It's okay.
But yeah. So if everybody's back, I'll just thanks. I'll just pick up where I left off,
Yeah. So I think
which was
when you cut off, you just started the child's dress portion of it. So yeah.
all right. Let's start over.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was just going to try to explain like elegance, right, in concise, like measurable terms. So what I mean is like something looks more childish or naive or not really elegant
Mhm.
when the proportions are even. So like you know, top being the same length as the bottom, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a lack of like direction or there's a lack of contrast between shapes that is kind of like it's just neutral. There's no feeling. There's like all right, that's it. Like just a bunch of shapes.
Mhm.
Imagine just a bunch of rocks. You could do the same with rocks or whatever, but you know that's like all right, nothing special. All the shapes are the same, same size, same weight, same like priority, like sense
Yeah.
same like importance within the whole thing. Whereas if you compare with like a ball dress, where you have like a waist that's very like high, maybe a chest that's very small, like in terms of like space taken,
Mhm.
and then like longer, just a more like longer projecting like skirt, and this creates a sense of a sense of contrast. You have like a long shooting line and just a bunch, usually like you'd have like jewels or like an interesting color, something happening. But you see what I mean? It's like a contrast between a long calm shape and a small concentrated area where a bunch of stuff is happening.
Mhm.
And that's a good, at least it's something tangible that I can sense and measure. It's like okay, that's a measure of elegance in a way.
Yeah.
uh, and that's what I try to do here. Like I'm gonna do like it really doesn't matter what it is yet. It's like just mounds of snow, just so like accumulated right there for no reason, uh, for no other reason that like their visual impact,
Mhm.
and so on the side, I keep things very simple, not busy at all. Uh, and so that would be our ball gown essentially. Like here would be the chest, and here would be like like sideways. If you put a ball
Oh,
gown just
cool.
like sideways,
Yeah.
and it's it's one of those things. It's or like easy principles to remember and to judge your own art through, like with if you're sort of stuck somehow, like or something's off, I don't know, not too sure, just think of that ball gown and thinking like okay, where should I prioritize, like, and usually there's a weird like uh it's a weird paradox because you're purposefully concentrating the detail into the smaller part of it,
Yeah.
where it's all small and tiny in the top of it, and purposefully you're leaving most of it empty and making most of it just act like as arrows towards that small shape, and that it creates a weird tension, a weird like yeah, a sort of paradox that mostly it's empty and just the one thing that's like preciously detailed.
Yeah.
uh, and that's really good. And you want to avoid the rest, which is like tacky, detailed everywhere, and just a little bit of restful area somewhere around. Like, all right, here's like, like whatever. Like, oh, there's nothing there in that corner because I didn't think of anything. But
Yeah.
so it's a weird like you're playing with fire in a way. Like you feel like it because like, oh, I'm making a lot of it just empty. I don't know. I hope it's gonna help, but it does usually. Like it's at least try to purposefully do it, and you'll see good results.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like same thing here. On the other side, I'll just like play with little mounds of snow, accumulate some snow on that roof over here. I'm just letting my perspective grid sort of inform me of like what I'm like, where I'm doing things, but I'm literally just painting little rectangles and little shapes and not really thinking too much. I'm making this purposefully busy here, just around my tree, because I want the focus to sort of like be here.
Be in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest, like, see, this may be too detailed. I'll see. I'll maybe make it lighter so there's less contrast, less value contrast, and I'll definitely make it like longer, less busy. Not too sure what it is yet. Maybe a long sort of barn, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe a decrepit something, I don't know, a ruin or whatever. Anyway, I'm trying to stretch it, elongate it, like not make it too busy.
I think it's nice that you don't have to come to a decision on what you want it to be right away. You know, it's just like I know that this is what I will probably need, this sort of shape, so I can think about it. I can come back to it later, but
exactly. Yeah, it's especially like if you've gathered reference, if you know what you're gonna paint, like maybe the client gave you a brief, or maybe you gave yourself like a few materials, like like countryside buildings, trees, water. That's it. Like you know what you're doing, and then it's a matter of like defining composition first, and then like translating it in like as you detail it into like actual shapes. But that can be later. I like to compartmentalize things, not to overwhelm myself with too many decisions to make too quickly.
Yeah.
And by the way, that lake that was sort of trying to expand all the way like to the horizon, it actually just became like another part of the river, like the back of it maybe, as if it was sort of like serpenting like this. That's just another Bob Ross like happy accident. We'll just call it that. And that would be cool. All right, let's go back to this layer here. Just to be safe, let's make a new layer, and we'll use white again, and we'll see if like we can maybe illuminate like maybe the back could be like a mountain, sort of like way back. That could be cool. Potentially, there's potential there. What I need to do though is like make it maybe like lower the opacity, so I don't risk like going too bright. Let's just keep it like towards the red or something, because I don't want it to compete too much with the pine. I don't want it to have the same brightness. So yeah, I'll just keep it to that, and we'll sculpt with white for now. But that's why. Okay, that's why it was gray, because I have this layer. But I'll turn that off for now, so I know what I'm doing now. Right. So the top of whatever that hill is would be there. All right, let's not worry about the edge of the hill. We'll sculpt that later. Like for now, I'll just create a sort of mountain or something.
I love
that. Should have had mountain reference. Yeah.
I love that it is actually kind of. You say sculpting, and it is basically sculpting. In its own way. It's cool.
Yeah. I'm kind of lazy. Maybe it's showing me a cloud. I'm not sure. But no, come on. Because the fluffy pine is already very cloud-like. So I should definitely be not lazy. And all right, let's make it an actual mountain.
the inner turmoil.
Yeah.
Can I get away with being lazy right now?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where there's like fundamental principles of design, I guess you could call them, come in, and is like, no, like this is too fluffy. You can have something fluffy just next to it. Like, be sharper. It's got to be sharper. Think of something. All right, it's gonna be a mountain, and then we'll console ourselves with a nice, I don't know how, like a nice. Think of a cheese sandwich later. Like when I go back home, like I'll find something to console my inability to be lazy.
You make up for the laziness later on. It's like, oh well, I worked extra hard today, so I can be lazy somewhere else.
That's nasty sharp mountain I had to draw today. Poof.
Yeah.
We do have a blessed sort of work, like an industry. Like there's so many. You believe it or not, I used to, like, my early jobs were like in construction. I used to install like wet walls, like cool. Like a plasterboard, things. Just to make money, and like in between like study, whatever. And then, like it was just a few summers that I did that. or a few months in a row every time. Like, and thankfully never had to do too much, but it's still to this day I feel pretty lucky that I don't have to do that anymore. And yeah,
Yeah.
my definition of like an effort, like a strenuous effort, is like painting a mountain, like something slightly sharper than I would like to.
Yeah. Yeah. I like one of my first jobs, I between the ages of 13 and 17, I worked on like a local boatyard.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Uh it was, I remember like a few days after my 13th birthday, my parents were like, "Right, time for you to get a job." So
That's rough.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just
So
like freeloading 13-year-old.
yeah, pretty much. Well, to be fair, no, I got to keep all of the money. I didn't
Okay,
have to pay rent on my £18 every Saturday,
good.
but it, yeah, that had its moments. Like, you know, I remember getting into
Mm.
an argument with my boss at the time because it was like storming outside, and my job
Uh,
was to clean the outside of the boats. And it was like
mm.
storming, hammering down with rain. Like you could hear the rumbles of the thunder, and I was like,
Oh,
"But why? Like, why am I washing this boat? It's raining. It's getting like it's basically being cleaned right now." And they're like, "Well, you're getting paid." And I'm like, "I'd rather just go home. Like, I'd rather just not you not pay me." Um,
yeah. Wow.
but yeah, I like
Mm.
even back then I played the game of I wonder what I could, you know, I wondered what I could get away with, um,
Yeah.
like with not cleaning, you know.
Mm. There's a. I mean, it makes sense. It's pretty logical. Like it's like raining. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
it. Well, like even if it's like I get it. Like rain is not like if you're scrubbing a boat clean, but
yeah, for
you're
sure.
gonna have to do it after the rain anyway, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not rain is
it,
not that.
that's the
It's just
thing.
gonna mess it up.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But no, that was a pretty uh, that was a pretty interesting job to have for a few
Yeah.
years. It was only over like the summer months, but
Mm.
yeah, that was.
Do you like so you live near the sea, or at least you lived at the time near the sea?
Um, so no, well, I do live fairly close to the sea. The city that I live is only like uh, half an hour away. But the village that I grew up in is on a series of rivers, like called the Norfolk Broads. It's quite famous, I suppose. But I think they're like
Mhm.
the the largest man-made waterways in the UK or something, or like Northern Europe. I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
But yeah, my village is
Obscure bragging rights.
right on
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so
Okay.
loads of boatyards to work on. Loads of really nice, like when the summer holidays from school came around, like my uncle had a boat, so we would go out on the
Oh,
broads on this like sailing on his like sailing boat and stuff. It was cool. I was very lucky.
sailing was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's for sure. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but
Was it common like kids your age just like you get a job at the shipyard or something like you just that's like the line of yeah
yeah,
like the go-to like summer job.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like you either got a paper round and worked for basically nothing, or
Mm.
or you went down working at the boatyard. Still got absolutely ripped off, but
Yeah,
it was a
I
bit
I
better.
guess
It was a
as a
bit better.
13-year-old newbie, yeah,
Yeah,
you get the bottom of the food chain, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember we had to take. They're called mud weights, and basically it's the equivalent of like an anchor, but for a
Uh-huh.
riverboat. Um, super heavy bit of like cast iron, like weight at the
Yeah.
front of the boat. You just drop it off, it lands in all the mud, scrapes along the bottom of the riverbed, and it keeps you in place. Um,
Mm.
and we had to clean those as well. But man, pulling those out of the water at like 13, it's like I've got
Ah,
no strength, and these things are like I don't know, like 25 kilos. I'm just like, oh no.
Mm, yeah. Did you get ripped though? Like I bet, after the end of
Yeah, you
your,
do, yeah,
you're like you could
yeah,
barely recognize yourself in the mirror.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was
There's
probably
that.
the
Yeah.
I was probably the strongest that I've ever been in my life between the ages of 13 and like 17.
Yeah. There's that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It had its moments, like when the weather was really nice and you just sort of, yeah, you're just casually like cleaning boats on like a really nice sunny summer day, and
Mm,
you can feel like the boat like rocking on the water. Oh, it was great. Uh,
yeah. Ah, nice.
mm.
Yeah.
It's not even legal to work at 13 here in France. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, it might not have been when I started working. I honestly don't know. Um, but it was just such a common thing to do that
Mm,
I never really thought twice about it. But it was,
all right. So,
oh
yeah.
no, yeah, no, you go ahead.
Oh, you please finish your thought.
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna say, it was funny because you would have like the workforce was split in like two halves. So you had the you had the boys who would clean all like the outside of the boats, and then you'd have the girls who would clean the inside. And like I'm glad that I had the outside. As terrible as it could have been, the inside of those boats got pretty horrific sometimes. And it was just
Oh
like
my God.
you'd you'd see them, like you'd see these girls going in, like once again these girls were only like, yeah, once again like 13 to 16, 17. They were going in and you would just hear them like groan as soon as they go in, just like, oh
Mm,
no.
yeah.
But no, yeah,
Nice.
you
Nice.
go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like yeah, like kind of same thing I was doing with everything else, like this idea of distributing detail like
Hmm.
purposefully, if I can say it. So like close to the bottom is where I'd like to have like all that rocky mess and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I was trying to sculpt it above, like like the top part, but it was like sharp against sharp, and
Sure.
I think I like the idea of like maybe the mountain like being so tall that it again disappears in like a layer of cloud maybe,
Hmm.
or at least we don't quite see what's going on. Like for now it's very, again, like very binary. It's like warm versus cold. It's not a ton going on, but
Yeah.
uh it's later you can always like add more color complexity with just normal painting, but at this stage you can, like, that's what I like to do, really, like try to indicate as much as possible using the littlest, like the smallest amount of like layer modes, or
Hmm.
even layers period, or colors or whatever. So like right now, so far I've been painting with like just five, yeah, like a few layers. I could Honestly, I could just like do this and keep painting. Honestly, it's like a base black dark layer, a base bright layer,
Hmm.
and a sort of like paint over where I'm just gonna do everything. Uh, I'll just go back to it, yeah, and keep painting. But yeah, like that's my keeping things simple. Thinking of a way to keep things simple, especially at the beginning,
Yeah.
using just like general design principles or illustration principles. It's a good yeah, it's a good habit to try to cultivate.
Hmm.
Uh, Otherwise, like especially if you have an ambitious sort of thing ahead of you, like you don't know where to start. You like something's wrong, but you don't know what. Like it takes a while to develop like that sort of hierarchy of those priorities. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, with a bit of mentoring, or just hanging out like this with us, comparing your work. It For me, it just took me years and years and years, but you can of course accelerate that progress by having a community like this one.
Yeah.
I would definitely wish, like when I was, yeah, like in between shifts of installing plasterboard somewhere, that I could have like a nice hangout like this. That would
Yeah.
have been nice.
Man. I mean, hanging up plasterboard, it's got to be an art within itself, I'm sure.
I wish it were, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's just common sense. Like common sense not many people have. Like for example, the thing you have to do is like because you're basically like sticking big plaster boards, like things that are as high as a wall, like onto a wall that is just like a concrete, you know, mm,
Yeah.
a concrete structure, right? So there's no flooring yet. So you have to be a very clever chimpanzee and like make up like little using bricks or boards
Oh,
or whatever you
like a
want,
little
like to
pump.
just prop up those boards,
Yeah.
so that people can just stuff like whatever lining or whatever like boards can be. And of course, like the first 32 plaster boards you put, you don't think of it at all until you're, the master of the works. I don't know how, whatever.
Like
Because
your
it's like, yeah,
boss
no,
comes.
no, no, this is not good at all. Like, it's of course there's no way to unstick something that's been glued onto a concrete wall. So now you have to like chisel away,
Oh
and
no.
you have to just go like on the floor and like yeah, carve away.
Oh no.
uh,
That's rough.
yeah, it's you know
I love hearing about everybody's sort of jobs that they had when they were younger, like between studying or like when they were still in school, whatever.
yeah,
Because so many of them are just like random, like totally random jobs.
yeah,
And
for sure.
like I've
It's what you can get. Like it's just what's there.
yeah, yeah. This is the thing. Like I finished university and went working in a factory, like a storeroom for a
Mm.
company that makes like conveyor belts and stuff. It's just like the most
All right.
the most random job you could get. But I was like, well, I gotta have something. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. Like the weirdest job I've had was when so I would go to like these temp agencies. So it's
mhm,
like I'm free from Monday to Wednesday, like or whatever. You just give your hours and they just give you like whatever
yeah,
job is there. One time I was like, right, they're renovating a nunnery. So like it's like a
okay,
monastery but for nuns.
yeah,
You're gonna go there. Like there'll be a couple guys with you. Like they contracted a dude who like had a 2-person company essentially, and
yeah,
and like they need an extra pair of hands, so you'll be
mhm,
there. And so it's a bit of demolition. Like you just go into this like convent essentially, and you just like destroy partitions,
oh, fun,
like remove. It's very fun, yeah. Like with the mace, like you just like tear
yeah,
down like walls and stuff. Like it's really cool. Uh, Something we're not so cool is like once you like destroy all the partitions, basically like little cloisters. Each one was like a little room for each
mhm.
nun. You have like a toilet. You have to remove the toilet, and under the toilet is centuries of
Oh no,
that that just accumulated, dried, like that
oh,
just escapes the toilet and just found its way under the toilet.
oh
It's like that just
no,
like leaked away from the plumbing. And you
yeah,
have to scrape that, and
oh
just so you
man.
can, I scraped non-stop, yeah, for for living for not for a hot summer.
Oh,
That's the weirdest job I've had.
that's so gross. That went from being, man, that sounds really fun, to being like, I no, I no, no, I'm good.
Yeah, the the first like 2/3 of the day were fun because we're destroying partitions, and
Yeah.
then once that was away, it was like, oh, all right, that's the real. That's what they needed extra pair of hands for. Is like to do this, and it was just me. Like,
Oh no, man.
yep. Um,
How old was this like nunnery? Was it
oh, it's like I mean, it was centuries old because it was like, of course, it'd been renovated throughout the centuries. It
right?
was not
Yeah.
like, but yeah, it was definitely. I think probably the last time it was renovated was like it looked like it had been probably the 60s, the 1960s. Like it
Okay.
had like that weird furniture,
Oh
that
yeah.
thing on the floor,
Mhm.
that linoleum that you can tell
Oh
like you've seen a million times in like old buildings from the 60s.
yeah. Yeah. Man, I'm surprised that wasn't like protected. I think in the UK that would have been like a protected building. And they wouldn't have been able to just tear that down.
Yeah, I think what we're supposed to do is just like rebuild the interior because they weren't like it
Oh,
was not
okay.
up to code or something, but the outside, like all that property was still there. Like there were gonna be nuns later on, like or maybe they were just temporarily relocated or something, but
Yeah.
we're just supposed to like remove the inside,
Ah, okay.
um,
Yeah,
which was really bad.
that makes more sense. Man.
look at me, an expert on, conservation, cultural non-relocation. Suddenly I'm all. But anyway,
No,
that's
it's
definitely the weirdest job
yeah,
I've had.
yeah, yeah. It's funny though, the knowledge that you pick up from these kind of
Yeah,
jobs. Like, let's say, like from that time I worked in that warehouse. Like, I've still got knowledge about food, like about the food industry that I don't need to know. No
yeah,
one, it's not interesting. Like, it's it's never gonna come up in my life. But
I know.
for some
Yeah,
reason, my brain refuses to replace it with something that's more
of course.
useful.
It's hard earned. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like the same. Like for a while, I deluded myself to think, well, I can install plasterboard knife. One day I build my own house. At least I won't have to contract somebody to do it. It's
yeah,
like, no, I won't. Like, it was backbreaking when I was like 21. I'm not doing it. At 37, I'm not gonna hang like plasterboards everywhere. Like,
yeah,
I'll pay somebody. That's it's fine. It's
yeah.
and it's I already forgot like how to mix glue, like the proportions and stuff. Like this, it's forget it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. All of the practical stuff that you might end up using is
Mhm.
just like not it's not there. Um,
Yeah, or maybe like because it was like decades ago. Like now,
yeah,
like maybe it's
completely different.
completely insalubrious to like mix glue by yourself. You're supposed to buy it. Who knows, right? Like
Yeah,
norms evolve. Like
yeah,
people died or got sick that suddenly like this powder or whatever is not
yeah.
like methods are completely changed.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
completely useless. But again, totally refuse to let go of like this illusion that I can install plasterboard. It's
yeah,
my thing. That's a trait I can fall back on, like as if
yeah. I love I'd love it just like, oh man, yeah, maybe I shouldn't use asbestos in my house anymore. Maybe that's
Mm,
maybe that's a good thing. Um, Anna said I worked as a waitress at 16. It was ruthless. I'd rather do anything else
yeah.
than go back to the service industry. I can I can imagine that. I managed to escape the the restaurant the restaurant business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't in any of that. I worked in a supermarket for a while, but um, that's like a whole different type of that's a whole
Yeah.
different kettle of fish.
It's rough too, those supermarkets. Like you deal with clients. I worked in a supermarket for like 2 months, 3 months, and it was like brutal.
Hmm.
My friend hooked me up. Is like he had worked at that restaurant for like at that supermarket for like years.
Yeah,
We were like in our mid 20s, and one day like he had developed that callousness that just
yeah,
like yeah, the person who work at the same place for a long time. It's like yeah, it's fine, it's whatever.
mm.
To me, it was like everything was brutal, and like the clients were insane. Like these old ladies showing up,
Yeah,
shoving like rotten things in your face. Yeah, this is scandalous. Like you don't know where it's coming from. Like is this
yeah,
a trick? Does it really come from like the thing they say it comes from? Like all these weird drama,
yeah,
inexplicable people showing up with like a ton of bananas. That's what they want. Like
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's
It's
like weird.
it's wild. It's so crazy. I remember I once had a guy complain to me that the fish that he bought smelt like fish, and
Okay.
I I just kind of I, I just kind of looked at him and didn't really
Expecting the
say
next.
anything. Yeah, I was I was just like I was like, okay,
Right.
uh,
And then, yeah.
yeah,
So,
and um, and
right, you say, right?
and he was just like, well, yeah, it stinks. I'm like, okay, did you
Yeah.
you just brought it from the fish counter? So I mean, like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fish. So it was this whole exchange about the fact that yeah, he
Yeah.
wanted his money back for this fish that smelt too fishy, and
Stinky, fishy fish.
yeah, and I just called my manager, and my manager was like, yeah, yeah, just do it, whatever, man, yeah, whatever, and that's what it comes down to. 99% of the time, if you
Yeah.
go to a supermarket, if you want your money back, it's easier to like, it's
Yeah.
easier just to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing too, right? Like all that stuff is crazy to you when you're doing it. Like when you're like in it. Like,
Yeah,
why this crazy person asking me this? And same thing, I went to like, well, there was no manager like at the around me, so there was just the security guy, like this gigantic black dude. It's like, dude, like I don't know what's going on. Like this person, like prodding me with rotten asparagus, like
Yeah.
saying it's scandalous that I dare to sell stuff like that. And it's like, all right, just relax, just let me handle it. So it's just like, just usher that crazy person outside, like
Yeah.
say, we'll get your refund. Here's the refund counter. There's a whole procedure that when you're just like some younger person like working there, you think somehow you have to deal with it. You have to sort of resolve that whole thing. And no, there's like contingencies, for that stuff. It's just that you don't know it yet. Like it's all very impressive when it's just happening to you.
Yeah.
There was this old lady that was like stealing all my like cherries because I was at the fruits and vegetables thing, right?
Yeah.
And so dealing with all that stuff, and we had like this nice promotion on cherries, and this lady was like, because at least in France, like it's okay to take one, especially if it's a small thing, and taste it.
Oh, okay.
You can do one. There's no quantity, nobody's looking, but it's like good manners to like allow someone to have one of it, like not a peach, not a whole peach, and
Yeah, of
or not
course.
a bite
Yeah.
of it, but like a little thing. If it's like in like a bulk, like a bulk thing, like a cherry, you can have one and it's fine. Like, um, but this lady was just like shoving cherries down my throat. It was absurd. Just didn't know how to deal with that. To ask my friend like, what, like this person is going at it, like she's
We're gonna have none
roasting
of
those
that.
cherries. Like, what do we do? And we had to tell her like, all right, man, I'm like, anyway, it's just like absurd stuff. You don't know how to deal with when it's like, well, all you've known as a kid is like going to the supermarket with your parents and just buying things and going away.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy that when you realize that, you know, you're the normal one,
Right.
just for doing the, like, I don't know, that there are people out there that just go to grocery stores and just do the weirdest things. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
like,
I bet it's even worse now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think mental health has taken such a weird. It's taken a lot of people aback. All the
yeah,
stresses of society these
yeah,
days. You really see more crazy stuff than before.
yeah,
Like to me, that was like the nuttiest thing I saw when I was like 25. I was like, oh, this lady eats a lot of cherries. Like all
yeah.
my quotas are gonna get messed up. Like I'm not gonna sell enough cherries. And
Yeah.
it's pretty quaint now. It sounds kind of quaint, I guess.
Yeah. That was the thing. Like, I think after working in this supermarket, like I would work there over the summer when I came home from university and stuff like that. And like over the years, I just kind of, as you said earlier, I just built up that like callousness where you just like, I just don't. It's not my problem.
Mm.
So, if someone, if I was doing my work, like I worked in like the chilled section, so I'd be like working with all of the like fresh meat, all of the cheese and the milk and all of that stuff. And if someone like would interrupt me and then like ask me in a rude way whether we had any more of something out back, I would really politely be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll go and have a look," and then just go out back and just talk to one of my friends for 10 minutes, and then come back and be like, "No, sorry, we don't,"
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Looked everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've looked everywhere. I've called our supplier. It's just like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's just like,
We've moved mountains for this. Yeah.
yeah, for this one person, for this one old lady who doesn't have a specific brand of cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, yeah, it does get to that point though when you work in like supermarkets and stuff for that long. You just like, I'm not paid enough to
Yeah.
deal with to deal with people like you. It's just not worth it.
Mm. Yeah.
Obviously, if if they're polite and they're nice about it, then I'll do what I can. But you just get to know
For sure.
people. Like, that's so sneaky, Jaden. I wasn't the only person doing that, mind you. Like everybody, this is a very common thing to do.
Mm.
But no, it was fun. Looking back, I'm like, looking back on it, there are like good memories that you have. Like you meet people working these jobs, and
Yeah,
it's nice. But
for sure. There's the weirdest moments of solace in these jobs, because we're all kind of weirded out by what's going on, and it's kind of fun to just
yeah,
you know
yeah,
have fun like in a weird way with your friends, like playing like uh, we played football with like an empty pot of yogurt, like those
Yeah.
big industrial pot of yogurt, and we've just played football in the back for like forever. Like it's
Yeah.
like almost like a like I don't know. Well, it was just the weirdest thing, and it was magical for like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and then
Yeah.
our boss, like manager, comes like, guys, like we can hear, like everybody can hear you, like the whole shop, it's resonating. This empty pot being kicked around by three guys screaming around that is, everybody can hear that you're doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. We used to do this thing. We used to do this thing where if we were if we were walking, like if you were in the big like chiller that we had, not the freezer, that would be a different story, but just like the big
Right.
like fridge
Uh-huh.
that we had. If you walked in there and you were on your own and one of us walked past it, we would just close the door and turn the light off and
Yeah.
just walk off. like, like it wasn't cold enough to like hurt you or anything. It was just like oh, that's chilly, and like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could open it from the inside, but it was just it's just hilarious because
Yeah.
you would you would just hear like a really muffled "come on."
um
For some reason, they
it's
decided
funny.
it would be a good idea to put the light switch on the outside of the door.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh,
um,
that's so funny.
yeah. Jaylene said that's why you shouldn't be rude to anyone in the service industry. Plus, basic human decency. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, my least favorite thing is when you're asked to look for something, you check, but it's not in the store, and then they say, "But you have it online," as in it's on the website, but not in stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is the
Mm.
worst.
Yeah.
I once um I once had someone ask me for something that we didn't sell, and so I just lied to them. I was just like, "Oh yeah, you can get it at the Tesco's." There was a Tesco's like 10, 20 minutes away,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh yeah, you can get it at the Tesco's just around the corner. Like I'm pretty sure you can get it
Just
there."
send them on the wild. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. And so then they were like, "Cool, thank you, bye," and then they left, and I
They're
was like,
gone. Yeah.
"Well, never seeing them again." That was,
Still looking for that disco.
yeah, yeah. Um, and that's the thing. It's like, oh, if someone's polite to you and perfectly fine, it's like, yeah, I'll help you out as best I can. But if they're
There's
rude,
that, yeah, for
then
sure.
you get that kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
you build up that callous nature a little bit, and you're just like, oh, I don't care.
Mm.
I'm not gonna
It's
help
a
you.
rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, as we were like
Oh yeah.
reminiscing, going
Mm.
down memory lane, I was just adding more detail. So what I was doing here is like essentially adding stuff that give a sense of scale a little more, because that tree could be any size. Those buildings are vague, so I'm just
Mm.
like thinking, okay, what's the human scale? Like what scale are we viewing these things? So I was trying to add like little man-made things like barriers, fences, things that like, again, they're like man-made, but they're not like, you can be pretty loose with that. They're like just
Yeah.
countryside, fencing, like landmarks essentially. So it can be half covered in snow, kind of collapsed. It's kind of fun to play with those things, and always like thinking uh, uh, of diagonals. Like I
Mm-hmm.
try to avoid like anything too straight, anything too parallel, like anything too like vertical to horizontal. I try to play with uh, to give a bit of life and movement even to something that's like inanimate essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And like those restrictions are pretty cool to play with, because you get to develop a sense of um, self-sufficiency, with painting, that you're like, how to, even with something abstract and not really how to say it, like the subject is not particularly dramatic or
Mm-hmm.
interesting or whatever, it doesn't gratuitously give you a bunch of stuff to play with. Just having those little design, I guess, principles in your head, like, yeah, avoiding verticals, horizontals, using diagonals, putting things off center, having like sort of hierarchy with things that are like brighter and more detailed versus like things that are less contrasted and longer, more like less busy. Just that is enough to like keep the ball rolling and help you just arrange your composition and refining it. There's some pretty cool like just um, happy accidents, I guess, or like little things that you just discover as you do them. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll remember them. Like next time I do something that's like actually served that purpose, I'll remember to do that. That's the thing. Like I was talking with a friend like a while ago, like a couple of years ago. He wanted to become an illustrator, but he was like very new into it, right? Like he was just learning everything at once. So the thing that was actually um, a bit like a shame, I guess, like a bit it was a bit I felt bad for him is that he didn't feel like he had the leisure or the luxury of messing around with things, just like I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Like he felt like everything had to be like, oh, I have to practice my faces, the hands, all that stuff, which is true. But it's really super important to set aside some time to just hang out with your canvas and just do crazy stuff and let it take shape, let it go nowhere. Like, because that's the sort of, for people who've been drawing since they were a kid, that's the stuff that they got out of their system, or at least that they sort of grew up like doing naturally, just messing around with a blank sheet of paper without thinking twice, without overthinking the purpose of what you're doing. And it's much harder when you're like an adult trying to get into it. And it's already very conflicting when you're a young person into it already. You're like, all right, how should I, like distribute my time? And don't. My advice is try to explore a certain range. You can be rational, you can be purposeful, you can be like focused and all that stuff in your studies, like at some point. But try to carve an afternoon. Try to have like some evenings sometimes, or like a way to just like be completely like to do something that's void of any purpose, and to be playful, to be like loose, to just like chill out and let things take you away like this. That's why I like my friend, like I like drawing clouds still. It's really like it leads to nowhere. It's for nobody. This is pretty like chill for me. Like I'm just getting to discover some interesting shapes. Maybe that composition, it's that's it. Like after these 2 hours, I'll just like store it away, and there'll be just this like a sort of thumbnail I did. But I'll keep it, and maybe one day, like if I'm doing something similar, I'll have a couple of solutions there that just came about naturally. It's nothing's wasted, is what I'm trying to say. Like, and it's really important to try to carve away like a nice chunk of time every once in a while to just be playful with your stuff, with your canvas. And let things just happen.
I think that's the thing. Like, when you try and do anything, like when you're an adult and you're trying to learn any kind of new skill, you kind of forget that the whole, well, not the whole point, but one of the biggest things that you're trying to do is have some fun, and especially with stuff like art, it's being creative and letting your mind wander and see what you can come up with. But as an adult, it's so hard to kind of tap into that creativity again, because I feel like with a lot of people in the jobs that you do, it does get like that like freedom and that opportunity to just let go and be loose and have fun is kind of beaten out of you a little bit.
Yeah. There's also like, if you feel like, because sometimes like you might have tried different things throughout your like your 20s, for example, and now you're like at a point where like I have to be quick, I have to be even quicker than I have to make up for the time. And so sometimes you can gravitate towards like some mindsets that are a bit too gung-ho, like too like get out of your whatever, don't be a slob, like divide your like be super productive, all that stuff, which is true, for sure, to a degree, like there's a sense to that. But there's a million mindsets that you can absorb, from especially YouTube, the internet, all that stuff. Like there's a lot of like gurus that sort of, maybe they're not like ill intended, like they want to help people, but they might be sometimes too extreme. So they're seductive in a way because they're super extreme, they're like super efficient, or at least they present that, that they present themselves online, and they're in control of their image. So they're like, this is what you have to do if you want to be successful and if you want to make up for all that stupid lost time and all that stuff. So you can develop some weird like self-toxicity, and
Yeah.
so try to surround yourself with a variety of people. You can have these people in your life a little bit, like it can be in the form of like your favorite podcaster or whatever, someone you actually know, but try to also have a range of people that are different, like weird contemplative people, people that like try to vary your I don't know, your acquaintances and stuff, like your role models, so you can sort of like gravitate towards one or the other, like depending on your mood, depending on how you feel, depending on like, and try to cultivate a more complex palette of approaches, to what you're doing, because it's rarely like, one solution fits every situation in life. You can be like a lunatic with someone you're dating, for example. Like you can be like, all right, the future, like, like you have to take it easy. Same with like art in a way, like same with anything that's really complex and subtle and sophisticated. Um, so yeah, and that friend, like, unfortunately, I think he's picked up again, but for a while he just gave up, which is very unfortunate. I think he was just a bit too um, uh, maybe ambitious, or like his idea of what he should be like is, well, his whole like sense of self, like purpose and all that stuff was a bit like too stretched and too, maybe he was trying to solve too many things at once. But yeah, like time, like nature is gonna take its time, to change all your stuff. And what I'm trying to say is like, really carve away sometimes to just be playful and be nonsensical with your stuff. Like, for example, like an analogy I like to draw is like, when I used to do a lot of climbing, like rock climbing, and I would go like in between seasons, I'd go just to the climbing gym. And you would have a very strong difference between people who were there all the time. Of course, they could afford it. Just maybe a job that afforded them, or they're just like professional climbers, or they would just arrange their life around climbing. So they were at the gym all the time. They were not climbing all the time. They were just like hanging out. Just like I'm doing here, like just a stroke here, a thing there, flipping canvas. They would try something, relax, chat with their friends. Of course, they're all like shredded gods of climbing, and like, what the? I'm trying again, and again, I'm failing. It's because like, yeah. So there's a weird like, I don't know. They're on their own time, their own like frequency. It's kind of weird, and you feel like you don't belong because you're not one of But at the same time, you have like people who are even more on the opposite extreme of than you are. Like you might feel sometime in the middle, and like people who are like, here, I have 30 minutes, I have to do that stuff. That's what I set out to do. To do this, do that, and these people, I mean, in years I've been climbing, like they get injured so quickly because they just no way, like they just try to cram too much into too little time. They don't chill in between enough. They think they're wasting time if you're just relaxing. Of course, that's how maybe they don't have a choice. That's an unfortunate, reality of life. You're just not in full control of like everything you want to do all the time. But still, it's unfortunate that like these people get injured too quickly, and so there's a sense of burnout that can happen also. With anything really, with painting, with anything, and that's really unfortunate because it doesn't have to be like that.
That's the thing. I mean, even I'm guilty of that. Like, there's multiple hobbies that I have and that I want to improve on, but I have a very like similar mindset in that like I'll be doing this hobby for like a few months maybe, and I'm like, oh, I'm just not where I should be at, and I'm like, but whose time am I working with? Like, like, it's just like, no, it's something that like, I know is ridiculous, but yeah, it is like a bit of a battle. It's like, you really have to try and cut yourself some slack.
Give yourself more time. I think it's time. You have to give yourself more time than you think you need. Like, you wish ideally. Well, I guess it's good to give yourself a deadline. Like, all right, by next year you want to do this and that, because it gets the ball rolling. It gets you moving, gets you hyped up, all that stuff. But like, also it's good to learn to let go, to use that deadline as just sort of carrot. And then whatever happens in the end, like, all right, maybe didn't get the carrot, but I got a good sense of what, like, already it's like there's something to get from that. It's not like a failure. It's not. Nobody cares. It's not, especially if it's like the self-imposed sort of thing. and if it's something that you know you have the luxury to do,
Yeah,
like learning how to paint or something, it's not something so essential. You know what I mean? It's like there's degrees to like what you have to do right now, right?
yeah, sure.
Uh, so yeah, like yeah, definitely giving yourself more time, uh, com- learning how to hang on tightly to this stuff,
Hmm.
and then letting it go a little bit
Yeah,
as it sort of, no matter what happens in the end, you still covered a lot of ground.
yeah.
Uh,
Let me just
takes
take
more time, yeah.
yeah, just take a look and see what people are saying. Lucy says it's so sad to see people lose their passion. One of my former classmates fell in love with animation, but immediately started grinding so hard to get a job after those 2 years of school, so they never had a playful phase to deepen their passion and quit after those 2 years because they only associate animation with work and struggle. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough. I think that's the thing. A lot of schools as well. Like if you go to school to do a lot of this stuff, it can really it can really kill a lot of the passion that you had. Like you know,
yeah.
uh, like when I went to university, it killed a lot of the passion that I had um, for for like games design. That's something I wanted to do since I was a kid, and I went to university, and it just like it just
Wow,
killed it mostly. I still do like an
wow.
odd game jam every now and then, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's it's rough. And yeah,
Hmm.
you start going into it again. Like even the game jams, like you start going into it, and instantly you're just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Like the association just it can stick. It's rough. I'm not saying it's the same for
Yeah,
everybody, of course. Like some people love that, like thrive under that kind of environment. But yeah, it's
mm, well, yeah. And nobody's gonna care. Like, well, while you have your parents, nobody's gonna care about you more than your parents. If you come
oh
from a healthy family,
yeah,
like
for sure.
then there's you. Nobody's gonna care more about you than you.
Yeah,
So you gotta be careful. You know, like
yeah,
be gentle with yourself, and like whatever happens, you give your, you know, like learn from everything.
yeah,
Like,
for sure.
but yeah, don't be too like there's just sometimes like, so before I had like a sort of Patreon like course thing, right?
Mm,
And I had a student for a while. He didn't stay very long, unfortunately, but he was like, he had put so much pressure on himself again, like in a
mm,
playful way, like he was trying to be playful and like, you know, kind of jokey about it, but he was like, no, Arthur, like tell me, like anytime I suck, like just tell me I suck because I need to hear, like,
yeah,
no man, like first of all you don't suck, and I'm not like, this is a weird, you're trying to beat yourself to go faster, like a, you know, it's not,
yeah,
it's just paint, just, you know, paint, focus on that, let the rest take its course, but it's not going to be like self inflicted pain.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's not really gonna, um I don't know, it's hard to gauge it, but sometimes you feel it with some people. It's like it's not quite right, like there's gonna be pain, like you don't need to inflict it on yourself, like if you just
yeah,
work hard enough there's gonna be plenty of pain and weirdness and flat, you know, frustration.
yeah,
You need to ask people to add on top of it. Like it's a
yeah,
weird, it's a bit monstrous, you know. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the
no,
thing. It's
Arthur,
like,
tell me my stuff.
yeah, tell me that I'm terrible. It's like, no, because you're clearly telling that to yourself. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you need someone to be like
definitely.
a kinder voice.
Right.
Um,
Mm,
so I never dared to go to a game jam because the thought of doing something so quickly stressed me out. But it's probably a good practice to loosen up. I I still love game jams. If you have the like um if you know have any going on near you. I mean, in January there's the global game jam. Uh,
mm,
you can almost certainly find a group near you, and they're almost definitely going to want an artist. So if you can get involved, yeah, get involved. Like it's
cool.
really nice, really nice.
Nice.
Um, it can feel a bit it can feel a bit stressful, I guess, but everybody is in the same boat, so there's a lot of understanding that
Mm,
you've got 48 hours to make something. So
mm,
it doesn't have to be
interesting.
It doesn't have to be like the best looking thing ever. It just has to do, you know.
Yeah, interesting. So all right, because of course, like the output, you cannot just decide in advance what the output's going to be because
Mm-mm.
you're trying to get people together, see what happens, try to, I guess, stir the thing as it goes on, as it builds itself. You try to
Yeah.
stir it. So, so what's your favorite like aspect of it personally? Like
Um,
how many have you done, and how do they compare? Like what's the thing you take out of them?
yeah. So so I did one. I did at least one every year when I was at university. So that's three. I did a separate game jam afterwards. That's four, five. I've done five or six um, since I started university in like 2018. So not a massive amount, but enough to like you know that I
Mm,
enjoyed them. But um, for me, something that I really love from it is like the camaraderie that you get out of it. Like when you have a team together and you're sat there and you're waiting for the theme to come out because
yeah.
they'll give you like a vague theme. Like the first year that I did it, the theme was just home. The theme was the word home.
Okay.
Um, so everyone in the world has the same theme, and then it's just okay. 48 hours, off you go. And you're,
Oh,
oh god, okay. Um, and then you just take it from there. And just that, like that initial panic, and something that I always love, and something I still do love about game dev and game design is like the idea phase is just like spitballing ideas with someone. And if you get on really well and you kind of have that same like creative drive, you
mm,
you come up with some really crazy ideas. And um it's just so much fun just bouncing off each other. So
yeah.
as yeah, as an example, that theme of home, the game we made, I might have spoken about it on stream before. I've definitely spoken about it in the Discord. It was a game called Banjo where you played as like this dog called Banjo. And we w- and we were like, okay, let's make a game about an animal. Animal home. Like our brain instantly went to like snails, right? Because they carry their home on their back. And then we were like, but we don't want to do that. That's really boring. Um, like the term was like first level consciousness is what our lecturer threw around quite a lot, where it's like it's the
Okay.
first thing your brain came to, so just get rid of it instantly. Um
Okay.
so we decided to develop on it, and we were like, oh, we like dogs, so how about a dog? Like, okay, dog, home, maybe he carries his kennel around on his back as like a little shelter. Instead of a snail shell, he's a dog
Interesting.
with a little kennel. Um so we ended up making like this sort of puzzle platformer game where you played as this dog who could use his kennel. He could drop the kennel off of his back and use it in puzzles and stuff as like
Okay.
an extra platform. And you could decorate the inside of the kennel with all of these little trinkets that you picked up from finishing different puzzles and stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, and it's great.
wow.
And you bash it out over 48 hours, and you're just like sat there at 4 in the morning next to your programmer who is like who's like just in middle of a breakdown, just like I don't know how to make this work. And you're like, neither do I, but we'll just figure it out. um
Oh my God.
and it does bring people together. Like as me just I
That
made some
seems
of
to be
my
the
closest
thing.
friends at uni, and a jam, yeah. So um it's great. And there was one game jam where we had this was like we did a 72-hour one. um that one we got a little bit of sleep, not much.
Mm,
um but we ended up with something that was like playable enough that we ended up selling it to a there's like a website called Armor Games, which do just like web, like at the time it was like web, like flash games. um
mm,
it was one of those like hosting sites. And we sent them an email and we're just like, hey, we have this game called Dream Hopper. What we had no idea what
cool.
we would sell it for. So we were just like, would you like to buy it? And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll
Mm,
offer you like £200. um and being students at the time. We were like, yeah, sure, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we sold it for £200. There's 4 of us in a team, so we got like 50 quid each, which was great.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, it is cool. And the ideas that you come up with is great. We have like, for that game jam, we had a whiteboard, and it was like hours. We had like an hours since mental breakdown counter. We just like update it every time.
Oh my God.
um, it's great. It's chaotic, but
Mm.
it great. And yeah, what we got from it, you get loads of stuff from it. It helps with your ideation. It helps with like getting quick prototypes. You kind of get a bit of a sense for your scope as well. You find out pretty quickly what is within uh,
Mm.
and outside of a scope of 48 hours or whatever.
And depending on how you select people to work with, like I don't know if it's like just friends, people you know each other, or
Mm,
if like maybe some teams just sort of happen just by who can do what. You don't
yeah.
maybe know each other, but like that's gonna be good at like learning how to gauge people's,
Hmm.
like just people watching people like interaction just as an
Yeah.
experience, like sort of social experiment. Like
Yeah.
I wonder what it's like. You get to learn a lot like this way about like anxiety management and like
Oh, sure.
just
Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. It's gonna be really cool
Yeah.
for that.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about other people from doing it as well. Like,
Mm.
um, I I learned from that. I learned that I I I can work pretty well under pressure, or that I'm like pretty good at getting other people to work under pressure.
Ooh,
At least in
gracious.
that environment. Um,
Mhm.
because it was what I went to uni for, so I understood the process better. I knew what had to get done, and so um, if people were feeling like anxious or whatever, it was a lot easier for me to just be like, no, don't worry, like we've got this. This is what we're gonna do to like make sure we get this done on time. Or if it's not that important, I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, it's fine, don't worry, we can just scrap that. Don't worry about it. We'll move on to something else. Um, but you do learn a lot about yourself and about your ability and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
uh,
Cool.
we have a question. Sorry to go off topic. It's totally fine. Um, can I ask how you set up painting with the gradient map on your Photoshop? I can't quite
Oh,
tell
of
from your
course.
layers. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been a while
Totally.
since we covered it, so we might as well go over it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, let me just so I assume that perpetual pairs, you were not here at the beginning because that's all right.
Mhm.
I'll just assume that. So I'll just sort of like start over those steps here. I'll just group all that into one group. All right, and I'll start over. So so what you do to set up a gradient map, like that's the whole point of this exercise, like working from a minimal amount of layers, just using one layer, like one gradient map, and painting underneath. So I start from a purely like 50% gray background, like well, I should make it 54, like 50, but anyway, it's like close to just perfect gray between black and white.
Mhm.
Then you go here, so that's a little button here, like this half black, half white little circle, and you go to gradient map right there. So make sure that the properties are visible. That's like the tab that contains like your gradient map.
Mhm.
Click on the gradient itself, um, and you have two tabs, right? That's the two extremes, right? So at the left one, we're gonna make it black. The right one, we'll make it white. So now you have like basically your gradient map goes from pure black to pure white. It's like it covers the whole spectrum of like values, right?
Mhm.
So what a gradient map does is that it actually changes, like you're gonna pick colors, and these colors are gonna change like how black and white react basically underneath. So let's just click anywhere here. Like, well, you see like you click anywhere under your gradient, and you're going to create tabs like these little tabs here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just put one here, like somewhere here. I'll double click on it. And I'll go to like the reference that I like here, like this sort of church here. Like I'm picking all my colors from this reference here, this church in the snow. I'll click here, right? So now we have a color that comes from my reference. It's a red. Like check here, like there's the luminosity. That's the L. It's for luminosity. It's at 69 right here. So it means that the location has to match. So I'll slide it all the way to 69. And now my color, like the color I have corresponds in terms of luminosity to like the gray that would be there, like from black to white. Like it's at 69% gray, and it's also like the luminosity of the color itself is also at 69. So like the values match, and so it's a good spot. Like if I were to slide all the way there, we would have most of our gradient being super bright, and so that would be weird. Like it would bleach our image.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of it would have like some sort of midtones or something. So you want to keep it like sort of realistic like that. And then you just add more tabs. Let's just add here. You double click inside the tab. That opens the color picker. And you go to, like, I'll just pick another color. So like that's sort of indigo here. The luminosity, like L right here, it's at 47. So I'll just slide that to 47. Right. Of course, like you'll see, since the layer that's underneath the gradient map right now, like it's the gradient map is changing as we are just editing the tabs, right? And so it's sort of changing the way like the gray background underneath is reacting. So before we only had red, so it became red. Now it's like the blue is actually closer to the middle gray that we have. So you know it's like becoming blue. But anyway, it doesn't matter for now. I'll make another tab here. I'll pick a darker color right there. That's at 22 of luminosity, and we're almost there actually. Right there, I'll just slide to the location of 22. Mm-hmm. And what I did before, because I wasn't too like happy with having just from pink to white. It's not a very graceful or very rich gradient, I guess. Yeah. So I just added something here, like a new tab around. Let's just put it at 89. I'll make it a nice bright, like a rich orange, and we'll make sure it sort of matches here. Put it at 85, and that'll be perfect. All right, so this is it, right? Like, just to recap, we have a perfectly neutral background at 50% luminosity. We created a new gradient map. You have your properties here. And we've added a bunch of tabs whose colors and values correspond to like your reference. That's essentially the method. Now what you do is like sandwiched between your neutral background and your gradient map, you'll add a new layer. That's in normal mode. Gradient map is in normal mode as well. Mm-hmm. That's really important. And now you'll pick I like to pick like a very soft brush, something that creates a lot of like gradient. So you see like something that has a lot of like fuzziness to it.
Sure.
This way, if I turn the gradient map back on, like you'll see some interesting color variations. And you can either paint with black or with like just picking anything that's like more gray or whatever, or you can paint with white. And you see like basically I'm only using black or white, but it's creating all these crazy color variations. Mm-hmm. If I turn off this magical layer, it's back to like just exactly what I did, you know, just painting black and white over a gray background. But that gradient map that we set up, it just sort of changes everything as we are painting it in real time. Yeah. And that's how you get to do like basically all I've been doing. Like for example, if I go back to this thing here, if I turn off my gradient map, all we have is just really shades of gray. That's all I've been painting with, like zero color. Like we sort of set up all the color choices to be sort of automatic. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect, but it's that's what I like about this approach. It gets you like maybe 60% of the way with very minimal work that you do kind of in advance. So it's really neat. And then of course, like I like because it does only like a limited portion of the job. I added a new layer on top of everything. Like so, it's above my gradient map, so it's not affected by it. Like if I slid it under it, it would be part of like, the colors would be converted to whatever is in my gradient map. But I'll just keep it above because it's like a weird teal color that really doesn't, it cannot happen otherwise. So I'll just paint it on a different layer on its own. So that was like a pretty quick summary of like what we described at the beginning of the stream. It's like using gradient maps to program in advance what colors are going to correspond to what values, and only painting with values underneath, like just black and white, really.
Yeah.
It's really, it's very forgiving. It's really relaxing. I really like it. It can create some pretty cool stuff. Yeah. All right, awesome. You managed to take notes from my just crazy like speedy summary. I commend you for that.
If you do need to find out again, then this will probably be on YouTube afterwards. So if you need to rewatch to make sure.
Much more calmly worded at the beginning of the stream. So I invite you to check it out again.
Amazing. Well, do you think that that's probably a good place to round off?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, at least the whole method was pretty much like explained. Now it would be just like more detailing and just could use reference for this or whatever. It's more like now we're getting into actual like rendering.
Yeah.
But at least I wanted to explain like this technique and just how sort of carefree it can be. Like you just do a lot of like work at the beginning, and by work I mean just picking colors from a nice reference, making sure the values correspond, and then you just like paint underneath and let the magic sort of happen. That's really what I wanted to show you guys today.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Arthur, for coming along and doing that today. It's been nice to have more of a chilled out chatting stream with you as well. It's been nice.
Same here. Always enjoy it.
Thank you as well, everybody, for coming along and watching. I hope you enjoyed as well. That's it from us in terms of streams this week. We'll be back on Monday. We should have Joris here on Monday, another one of our wonderful art directors, for a little Q&A. So if any of you have any questions for Joris about being an art director, what it is an art director does, maybe you want to know a bit more about his artistic journey, then feel free to ask. I'll probably open up a channel in the Discord tomorrow to get some questions in, or you can send them to me directly if you want to be more anonymous. That's totally fine too. But yeah, other than that, I hope you all enjoyed today's stream. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week and a great weekend if I don't see you before then.
Thank you so much for the questions. It was really fun, like seeing you, and it was really nice seeing you again, and all the nice questions, and like just the banter, like just we were talking about like these crazy jobs we had, like it's fun to see where the conversation goes, and it was cool to see that people sort of resonated with that, as absurd as it was.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about doing these streams as well. It's just chatting and seeing what ends up being spoken about. It's great. But great, we'll call it there then. So thanks so much again, everybody, and I'll speak to you later. Bye bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.